Hello, everyone. I want to welcome all of you to tonight's BBA Alumni panel. Let's talk basics, how to start a career in accounting and finance. We are thrilled to have you with us. Before we begin, Yorkville University and Toronto Film School recognize that our campuses, both physical and online, exist on and draw resources from the traditional lands of diverse Indigenous peoples and nations. In New Brunswick, this includes the lands of the Wabanaki Confederacy, the Mi'kmaq, and the Wolastoqiyik Maliseet under the Peace and Friendship Treaties of 1760 and 1761. In Toronto, our campuses sit on the treaty lands of the Toronto Purchase, home of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wyandot people. And in British Columbia, our campuses is on the unceded territories of the Kaikait, Musqueam, and Coast Salish peoples. We share this acknowledgement as a reminder of our ongoing commitment to the strengthening our relationships with local Indigenous communities and deepening our understanding of the peoples whose lands we live and work on. As a university, we have a responsibility to recognize the lasting impact of colonization and to keep learning how we can be a part of meaningful change. Acknowledging the land isn't just a formality. It's a way to pause, reflect, and honor the communities who have cared for the lands for generations. By continuing to engage in truth and reconciliation, we take small but important steps towards a more just and respectful future for everyone in Canada. Thank you. Now, let's get started. First, I want to introduce our panel. Can each of you share your career path, where you started, and the role you're in today? We'll start with Cristiano.
Hi. So my name is Cristiano Bilanzola. I am a financial planner with Scotiabank Financial Planning Group, part of the Global Wealth Management Division. I started in finance back in 2001, starting at the bottom and slowly making my way up, getting my education as I worked and went, and just building my career from there. Now I deal with high value, ultra high value clients, helping them prepare for their future, optimize their financial situations, their tax situations, working with other professionals to hit that mark for them. So
Thank you. Anna, you're up.
My name's Anna. My career with accounting started a few years back within the private sector in construction by taking on administrative and just general financial roles, building on my experience, acknowledging that it's something I do want to pursue and further on, and then moving into the public sector, continuing on in a financial role, obtaining my BBA with the accounting specialization through Yorkville, and now currently holding a CEO position in a manufacturing organization that features work being completed within Canada as well as into the United States.
Thank you. Sean, you're up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Mullen. I'm currently a student engagement specialist with CP Ontario, and my career, probably like a lot of you, has done a lot of zigzagging. I started out in business, and then I moved into teaching and decided my passion was education and learning and development. There was no teaching jobs in Canada at the time, so I spent a number of years overseas in Korea and in China. When I came back, there were still no teaching jobs here, so I got into recruitment. And that recruitment ended up finding me a role here at CP Ontario, where I get to help students to really discover the great careers that are out there. And part of that role is really helping develop some of the important skills that folks aren't taught in the classroom in terms of building relationships and marketing themselves and leveraging their personal brand and building those important connections that are needed to discover discover the kind of career you want, and of course to make the connections to help you with the next step. So my role at CP Ontario is twofold: to tell you about the designation, which I'll do today, but again to really coach you on those important skills that employers are looking for, so that when you find your job, you can make that step.
Thank you. Audrey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Justin. Well, I'm kind of here under false pretenses, I have to admit. I'm the assistant dean of the BBA program, so I'm kind of here in that role. But my background is actually as an investment banker. So I studied economics and econometrics at university, and I started work in London, England, in investment banking, and worked my way up in a career there, and was finally responsible for investing JP Morgan their own funds into both public equity and private equity. So I did that for many years, and then it's a very long story and how I got into teaching, but I discovered that I really love teaching. Obviously, I teach a finance class, so one of the necessary evils if you're going to become an accountant. So I'm very happy to talk about any of that tonight, but I think actually you want to talk to the others rather than me.
Great, thank you. And a little bit about me, in case anyone was wondering, my name is Justin Medak. I will be moderating this panel. I am a CA CPA. After obtaining my designations, I worked at Deloitte, which is a Big Four professional service firm. Moved into industry, worked at Parmalat, worked at Labatt. Realized my love for teaching and passion for teaching. I've been with YU ever since the inception of the BBA online program in 2012, created every single accounting course that we have, both in the specialization and in the core, including the transfer credit agreement into CPA. And so welcome to all our panelists, welcome to everyone watching at home. And let's get started into the questions because I want to learn more about everyone here. Starting with the first question. Breaking into accounting and finance can feel overwhelming. What was your first step into the industry? Cristiano, you can go for it.
Yeah, you know, like many of us, I started, in an entry level position. So that's where I started. I think more relevant to the question would be kind of where I moved out of that entry level area into something that was going to be a little bit more long term. And that really was a lot of job shadowing. Over the years, I had the opportunity to meet people that I respected or that I wanted to maybe not formally get as a mentor, but certainly informally. And I learned what I liked, I learned what I didn't like, and then I basically built my education around that and my career as a result. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, everyone has a different pathway in terms of the uniqueness of everyone's career and having that mentorship opportunity early on and to learn what you like and don't like because there's so much diversity in accounting. So, if you have this false pretense of accounting and you're a tax accountant, and many people ask you, or a specific role in finance as well as accounting, but there's so much diversity and no one better to talk about diversity. Sean, I'll let you talk about diversity in the
Yeah,
profession.
absolutely. Thanks, Justin. My role and has been for the last 8 years, CPA Ontario, is to help thousands of students literally take that first step. And one of the best parts about the CPA designation is your ability to work across all industries, all companies, all sectors. That diversity, it's amazing because I get to meet hundreds of CPAs a year, and they're just so passionate talking about the work they do because they get choice. But the challenge is, how do you narrow that down? I mean, I was talking to Anne Maria about her work, both in public practice and now in industry. And it might surprise you to know that only 18% of all CPAs actually work in public practice firms. And so what are you going to do to try to figure out the other 82%? My best advice is this. You would never go to a restaurant on your birthday without looking at the reviews, right? What are other people saying about this place? Would I like it too? I mean, this is your career. You have to talk to the people that are doing the work. You've got to talk to the audit folks, the tax folks, the risk people, the consultants, the forensic accountants, the corporate finance, the government, the NGOs. Go and meet them so that you can start to narrow down what you want to do. And of course, in meeting them, not only will you get this inspiration, but you're going to get really good advice about the type of transferable skills that they're looking for, because everyone applies for that first accounting job without any previous accounting experience. You've got to articulate those transferable skills that they need, like critical thinking, problem solving, communication, collaboration. That stuff is really, really critically important. And networking is not about who you know, it's who knows you. So my best advice is go and meet as many people as possible. Go and have coffee chats. You'd be surprised how many CPAs are really responsive to say, yeah, I'll have a coffee chat with you and tell you about my work in my industry. And from there, you take that information. It's literally the answers to the test and you put it into action.
Yeah, you never know where your next job is going to come from, and networking, it's so vital in the profession. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember working at Labatt, working in their Sarbanes-Oxley department. And for 9 months, I would give my work. I would work in internal audit. I'd complete the work and I'd give it to the
Mm-hmm.
external auditors who happen to be Deloitte. And I didn't know this at the time, but Deloitte, as the external auditor, you could rely on the work of an internal auditor to do a little bit less testing. And
Yes.
so Deloitte would continuously review my work and gain trust in me. And they offered me a job after. There was no interview, there was no
Wow.
formality, but it was sending my work for 9 months. And they're like, I trust you and you have good quality work. And you never know. Networking can come in many different forms. It's coffee. It could be, looking at someone's work, meeting someone on a subway or bus.
Absolutely.
And it can come in so many forms. And speaking of networking and impressions, first impressions, Anna was in my specialization, multiple courses that I taught Anna in, and created such a positive impression of asking good questions and being engaged in the classroom. And you have an incredible story. So I'd like to, the same question that the other panelists. Breaking to accounting and finance can feel overwhelming. What was your first step into the industry?
So starting off in a general administrative position within the accounting field was when I began my kind of accounting pathway. Moving on to more senior position, again, building that network, meeting those individuals that would actually recommend me for other positions, moving into the federal government sector, again, through recommendations of others. The networking, I found it very important in my career growth. Coming onto the current company, I came on as a financial controller, working with external auditors. They recommended me for the CIO position after looking at my work for the last 12 months, and went back to the owner with, you have an opening. We recommend you take her on as a CEO. She has the background, she has the education. And like Justin said, yes, he has taught me in many courses through my Yorkville career. And again, that connection, that feedback, the support throughout that entire pathway to getting that degree made all this possible. Without it, I don't think I'll be where I am right now.
I love it. And no good story is complete. And we'll get back to you, Anna, as well, because there's so much more to uncover with you. But Audrey, you have to remember your start as well. It's so meaningful in everyone's professional career. Tell me about your start.
Well, I'll tell you very briefly about my start. Then I've got a question, I think, for Sean, going back to more accounting stuff. But for me, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I graduated. I could have gone into any kind of business, and it was just kind of chance. It was luck. I knew someone who knew someone who knew about a graduate recruitment program, and I actually went in to my first investment management position as just a general graduate recruitment person or student graduate, whatever it was. And I could have gone in several different paths. Obviously, it was a merchant bank, as we called it in Britain, but it was in investments. But I could have gone into half a dozen different areas to do with either investing in the stock market, bringing new issues to the stock market, specializing in bonds. There were a whole bunch of different areas. And we did a year, all the graduates did a year in the different departments and had a taste for them. And then you got a chance to say where you'd like to work, and your future bosses got a chance to say, no, I don't want her, move on, go somewhere else. So that was my start. And I don't even know if that's typical nowadays or not, which is why I had a question for Sean, which is when graduates with the accounting specialization, they've still got to do some of the PEP exams and so on, and then they get qualified as a CPA. Do they know what they want to do? I mean, as you've said, accounting covers so many different areas.
Mhm.
Personally, if I had done it, I would say, oh, corporate finance will interest me. Tax, oh no, thank you very much. How does the graduates decide what kind of area that they might want to work in?
Yeah, that's a real challenge, and certainly helps me have a paycheck because it's a mandate of ours to really showcase the diversity. I'll give you an example. In the fall is typically the big recruitment season for the big companies and the big firms. They will take third year students. They'll apply for an internship between third and fourth year, and then they'll go for a new grad position. And we typically see in these big events, McMaster, for example, they have a huge event. There's 300 people in the room, and there's 30 different employers. Same thing at Brock, same thing at Guelph. And there'll always be about 29 or 30 of those that are firms. And it makes sense. Firms like Deloitte, PwC, MNP, they hire lots of students. They have to have campus teams that go around. Whereas companies like Canadian Tire or Coca-Cola may hire only a few. They don't have a big campus team. And so when we talk about only a fraction of the CPAs being represented there, it really is incumbent upon students to explore, to look at events outside of the school. We have something called our post-secondary ambassador program, or PSAP for short, at CP Ontario, that has networking events, that has conferences, that has fireside chats that are always showcasing the diversity of the profession. We have another team that works specifically with internationally educated professionals to help own your future, meet CPAs that have also come to Canada and have walked that path before them. We have a whole team of career changers that really goes through that full support. We want to inspire you. We want you to meet the CPAs you're not otherwise meeting on campus. We want to develop you, giving you those marketable skills that employers are looking for, and we want to build those connections that you're going to need. So regretfully, it's something that, one of my favorite quotes is, what got you here won't get you there. You're going to need to adopt a new set of behaviors. And I challenge students to say, go and look up Yorkville CPA, find the alumni like Anna Maria, like Justin, who've gone through this pathway, and reach out to them. Ask for good questions, ask for advice, and you're going to find along the way that you're going to start to build up this reputation of someone that's hungry and keen to learn. But it's really through asking questions. There's no other way to know what a forensic accountant does, and if that's the right fit for you, then to go and meet with one. And luckily, our membership, I've found in my experience, are so dedicated. They want to tell their story. They want to tell them about the impact that they get to make and the real problems they get to solve. So take it upon yourself and go and do it.
That PSAP program is incredible for any current students who have that opportunity. I remember students raving about the etiquette lunch or dinner, and
Yes.
how impactful that was, and how to hold a fork properly, or how to hold a conversation in a certain room, and that could lead to a job. Like it's those small things that sometimes lead to those big opportunities. And just to talk about, uncertainty with students, there's a lot of management training programs out there as well that will give you a different perspective in different areas of the business. And at Deloitte, I was very lucky that I spent time in project management and spent time in fraud prevention detection, spent time in internal auditing, external. So even if you're uncertain as a student, many people are, and a lot of jobs give you that leeway to experiment
Sure.
in different areas. If you're in a management training program, or if you're in a big company, and that's a neat opportunity too, because it is a lifelong journey to find what you're truly passionate about. All right, let's move on to our second question. And we have a very diverse panel. We have people in finance and accounting and financial planning, and all over the different areas. So my second question for you will be, what certifications have made the biggest difference early on? And this will be a different response for each of you. So I don't know if anyone wants to jump in with that question specifically. But what certifications do you find would be really helpful at the start of your professional career?
So I mean, I can start. Obviously, my certifications are going to be a little bit different in terms of what I do. Many of them would be maybe similar to what Audrey got early on. So things like securities licensing to make sales, to be able to to sell products to clients, that sort of thing. I think the most important, obviously, for me was just hireability. right? So coming in with my Canadian securities course, coming in with my, my basic personal financial planning designation, those are big drivers for, larger companies, whether it be banks or private equity firms or whatever the case might be, just to get your foot in the door. And I think that makes a big difference early on. Then obviously you can specialize, right? So I mean, I was a branch manager for a bit. I took a branch manager's course. I was I took a CIM course and all sorts of other different designations as I needed them. But I think just that entry level, early on, the securities course and and the financial planning courses, even if it's not all the way into a designation, but just at least your basic level, retirement financial advisors, that sort of thing is really important in, basic finance if you want to kind of climb up, however fast that might be, right? So.
You never stop learning. You feel like undergrad is the end, but each certification, each designation is just another building block for you in your professional career. It strengthens your knowledge to be able to support clients, to provide more competency in your job. And this won't be the end for you either. It's going to continue throughout your entire career. And I'm going to guess it's the same for other people on the panel if anyone else wants to jump in.
I think, well, working within the construction industry, projects and budgets, and having the financial obligation under those projects, one of the key things starting off within the industry was the data analytics. And that was key because you have to understand those numbers. You have to understand, what do they mean? And how do you read them? And how do you implement them into the strategic plan of the organization to meet those goals, to meet those objectives? So that to me was the biggest kind of foot in the door kind of aspect of actually going ahead and building on those steps to the career.
Analytics, and I see, you highlighted analytics as so important. And Sean, I see you shaking your head with analytics, and I'll let you jump in a second. But analytics is so important. CPA highlighted it in their competency map about, 4 years ago, as saying this is an emerging area, is very, very important. And at NYU's accounting specialization, we focus on analytics as well. We use Power BI, which is analytic software, and we study through cases and utilize Power BI to give students that opportunity to just gain exposure. And exposure is so important in an undergraduate setting. And Sean, I'll turn it over to you now in terms of what are you seeing about analytics, and also about answering the question about designations and certifications early on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, look, the 30 years ago, a degree may have been enough to put yourself on a path for financial success. But in today's competitive world and the cost of living, you need to differentiate yourself. And if you're in the finance industry, of course, the more of those designations you have, the more investors and clients are going to be able to trust in the skills that you have and the signals that you're putting out there. In terms of data analytics, there's really never been a more exciting time to be a CPA, because gone are the days of spending all this time doing the debits and credits and the balance. I mean, all of it's automated. It's there. We got AI giving us huge swaths of data that we've never seen before. But what it can't do is make judgments on that data or be the human in the loop. I remember a partner once said to me, rarely in my career has a client ever asked me for the answer. They always ask me, can you help me understand this? Can you walk me through this? What does this mean and what should we do? And understanding what the data means and speaking that language and identifying the trends and the patterns, that is a superpower. When you know data, that allows you to make more informed and bold decisions. That allows you to solve bigger problems. That allows you to really thrive in these disruptive, ambiguous times. And that's why CPAs are really well positioned to be there. So obviously a little biased, because with the CPA, as opposed to exams, there is a practical experience requirement that's needed. And it typically is easier to get that job that you need to get the requirement out of university. So we have a lot of CPA CFAs. They do their CFA level 1 in 4th year. They do the practical experience as part of the CPA designation, and then they go on from there. So really, whatever pathway you choose, having a designation is what is going to differentiate you.
Yeah, and Audrey, you like to highlight Sean's point here of it opens up the door to so many channels and so many pathways. And I don't think you envisioned, you said early on, you didn't envision yourself here teaching. And I have the same story as you of CPA, and then you find a different pathway, but you still have your roots in finance. And so if you want to speak a little bit about, designations early on and how it can be impactful, later on in your career, whether you stay in industry or move out of industry.
Sure, yeah. I think if anyone was considering doing what I did, they have to have their CFA today, their Chartered Financial Analysis Analyst. So, like the CPA, only a different route would be sort of the description there. So, if you want to go into corporate finance, doing a CPA is not a bad thing, but if you can go directly into the CFA, then that is a different route. But you need to have something, and as Justin says, that carries you then for the rest of your career. I'm kind of at the end of mine. When I started, the CFA was this funny American thing that we didn't do in Britain because it was nasty. It was American. We didn't follow that. We had our own sort of equivalent. But you need to have something, just as the others have said, to justify your ability to apply for a job or to work at a job. So it doesn't matter what you want to do. I think you just have to commit to it. And once you have it, then it can take you into all sorts of unusual or unexpected areas, as you can see here today. I mean, for me, I quit working in investment banking in my 40s and did a lot of other stuff for a couple of years, mainly skiing and learning landscape design and so on. So we put that to one side. But then I kind of fell into teaching and discovered I loved it. And I had the finance background to be able to do it. And this was at the time of the global financial crisis. And there was a particular university in Alberta that wanted a course taught that wasn't just out the textbook, but was explaining what was happening in real time. Current events, what is this all about? Who is Lehman Brothers anyway? And so I taught that course. I did it once and discovered that was it. This was for me. So you just never know, where you're going to end up. But I would say to everyone who's listening, you need to get something good at the beginning because then that carries you for the rest of your career.
It does. And I remember my early days at Deloitte, and I was an accountant. I was a CA at the time, and I got put on a big project. I was put on the RBC external audit. It was a $20 million engagement, and I was the project manager of this engagement. And wow, it was, it was incredible, but I didn't know too much about project management. And the partner at the time said, Justin, I want you to get your PMP designation. And I know this is not a PMP conference, but I completed it, and it made me realize how much more depth and it allowed me to bring out the best in my work of saying, like, look at all these tools I have. And it's almost like a Swiss Army knife, whether it's financial planner or CFA or CPA, where you're a Swiss Army knife of tools, having something that grounds you, and you could utilize those tools, and you could bring out the best in yourself, your work, and the people around you. And so for the next question that I have, I'm going to turn to Anna first because, we've had some conversations, and I know you've had a few different jobs in the time that I've gotten to know you. And so what have you learned about job hunting in a competitive market? Because this market is not easy, and there's a lot of anxiety about job hunting in this market. So what have you learned about job hunting in a competitive environment? Because it's tricky. It's not easy.
It's not easy, for sure not. One thing that I found useful is having that kind of competitive advantage over others and having the understanding of the industry that you are applying into and having the educational background. That really helped a lot. Prior to getting my degree with Yorkville, I could say I had general entry level positions within the accounting. The minute I graduated from Yorkville, like that month I graduated, I completed my last course, my last term. That's when the doors opened. That's when all the opportunities, the job offers started coming in. And it made a huge difference in the career path, being able to stand outside and kind of present yourself and say, okay, I got the practical skills, but I also now have the educational and the theory. The theory is also very important because you have to understand the stuff. You may be able to do it, but unless you understand the information you're looking at, you have to have both kind of a balance in between the both. But yeah, you gotta, for me at least, it was standing out among other people.
And that's what you have to do. It's about getting noticed, and that could be networking. It could be your knowledge. There's so many different ways to stand out, and it's a process. There's so many building blocks that go into standing out. Christiana, what about you? Tell me about, like early on and job hunting, competitive market, and what are your thoughts in terms of, how do you stand out?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, going back to what you said, being a Swiss Army knife, having those transferable skills, really was a huge boon. And doing the education and getting the courses that maybe weren't your direct focus, or parts of it weren't your direct focus, allows you to have conversations with prospective employers. That's just, hey, listen, yeah, I understand that you do this here. I have this education. Some of it follows this way. I do have a basic understanding of it. I'm going to learn more from you. I think being able to walk into a position, into a conversation with a prospective employer, and there has been quite a few over the course of my career, and just have a conversation and say, hey, I'm not an expert in your business, but I have a very good understanding of X, Y, and Z. I think this applies in this manner, has really helped me throughout my career, and certainly helped differentiate from, the competition, who in a lot of cases maybe came to the table already better educated, or came to the table already with 30 years extra experience over top of me, and just being able to have that conversation really opened the doors, I think.
And you make a good point too, in that you have these conversations, and becoming that Swiss Army knife. Now, not every single conversation will work out, but it's about reaching out and broadening your horizons, and it's about that continual effort that you put in to make that impression. You don't know when that impression will stick. And for a certain employer, it may resonate with them. For another, it may not. But you have to keep trying until you succeed, and get that job. And Sean, I want to get your opinion here for the last speaker for this specific question, because I'm sure you see it very often. What have you learned about job hunting in a competitive environment? And maybe not from your perspective, but in the students that you work with every single day.
Absolutely. I coach thousands of students on this specific thing every year. And I think the most important thing that you need to realize is that networking is not 15 minutes of a conversation to get a job. It's 15 minutes to start a 30-year relationship. You would never go on a first date with someone and ask them to marry you. That sounds crazy. So why are you going to go on a 15-minute call and say, hey, we should work together every day for 40 hours a week with your clients and your teams? It takes a bit of a long game. It takes building the relationship first. People are very, very suspicious when you reach out to their coffee chat that you're just trying to talk to me because you want to work at my company. It's really important that we focus on the person and not the company they work for. You really want to work for Deloitte? Great. Don't go into the conversation saying, so how do I work at Deloitte? What do they look for? And can you give me some advice and put in a good word for me? People will see and immediately feel that this is transactional. You're not investing in the relationship, and the conversation is over. Focus on the person. What do you like working at Deloitte? What are some cool things you get to work on? How did you figure this was the right path for you? You should be putting on your resume, on your LinkedIn, on your bumper sticker, your name and aspiring CPA. Let the world know that you are on this journey. Let them know that you're curious. And they know you're looking for a job. We've all been in your shoes before. You don't need to make that overt and obvious. They know. What I would do is come with that mindset of curiosity and enthusiasm. Say, hey, I'm on the CPA journey. I know I can be like a queen on the chessboard going across industry sectors. I'm so excited. I'm trying to narrow down where my first steps would be. That's why I'm meeting with cool CPAs like you, because I want to get a sense for how you took those first steps. When we ask people for advice, you're letting them know how they can help you. And if you ask, one of my favorite quotes of all time is, if you go around asking for a job, you're going to get advice instead. But if you go around asking for advice, sometimes you might get a job. And I can probably speak for everyone in this room in that, old people like us, we love giving advice. I'm doing it right now. I'm having a blast. It's a great way to make somebody feel good very quickly, which is what relationship building is all about. If somebody knows you and they like you and they trust you and they know about a job, they're going to tell you. So spend the time building the relationships and make your intention to this conversation, this coffee chat, this one-on-one to learn and be inspired, because then you can't go wrong. Then you're not worried about messing up or being rejected. And if you do that well and you take the desire for the job out of it, you actually are organically, indirectly creating the ideal circumstances that you're the person that they want. Just like your example, Justin, you weren't looking for a job at Deloitte. You were looking to prove yourself and do a great job, and then they brought you in. And so what I would be doing is going to recruiters and saying, a recruiter's job is to give you information. Go and connect with them and say, hey, I want some information about KPMG. I'm on this journey and I'm excited. Who do I talk to next? And if we can have that mindset, and also the last thing is remember that they are not going to ask you any accounting questions in your interview. They can see on your transcript, you know how to learn. You know how to learn IFRS. A partner once said to me, there's only two things that I really care about when I'm hiring you. Can I put you in front of a client? So can you communicate? Are you professional? Can you build likability and trust? And can I sit next to you on an airplane for 8 hours? What she's saying is, we'll teach you the technical stuff, but I need someone that I can bring on my team that brings new ideas and new perspectives that I can put on the team, and you'll sit with them in the lunchroom and actually build culture and cohesion. And that's why in these accounting interviews, there'll be two parts. The first is around your judgment, your ethical mindset, and how you problem solve. And the second will be you with a partner or you with a senior executive, just having a conversation. Are you someone interesting? Are you showing personality without being personal? And you get to teach people how to tell your story. And LinkedIn is a profound opportunity that you get to do that. When I hire my student volunteers to be leaders on campus, I look at their LinkedIn and say, have you been posting? Do you have your story out there? What preview can you show me on your LinkedIn activity that says you're the kind of leader we want at our company? You get to use that tool to tell your story even before they decide to bring you in for the interview. So get active on LinkedIn, be part of case competitions, be part of volunteer stuff, do whatever you can do to show that you are a community builder and you're someone who build teamwork when they hire you. And that's going to do more for you than any coffee chat will.
Love it. I still remember working at Deloitte and being part of the recruitment team there to recruit students. And I would have during the recruitment evening, I'd have a conversation with about 100 students, and you'd say, what is your hobby? What is your passion? And I heard accounting is my passion, accounting is my hobby. Like 50 of the 100 students. But then you have, these pockets of genuine conversations. I still remember one young lady, and this is about 17 years ago, 18 years ago. She's like, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro over the summer. And
Cool.
that just resonated with me. And we had a conversation about it. And she ended up getting a job at Deloitte over it. Not because she climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, but she stood out in an early conversation and we was very personable and did well in the interview process. And sometimes you need those to really stand out. And so again, you never know when that can happen. You think that accounting is my hobby is the correct response, but if 50 people are saying it, and can I work with someone for 12-hour days when accounting is their hobby, and that's the tricky thing. So your comments really did stand out to me. Next question for the panel. This is an interesting one. So early career missteps happen. And they happen to so many of us. And what's something that you learned the hard way very early in your career? And I'll start with this one. So I was doing a co-op at Scotiabank. And this was really early. This was high school co-op for me. And the managing partner at the time said, Justin, I want you to create an RRSP form for me to send to clients. And here's last year's form. And so I created it. There was a few spelling mistakes in the form. I'm in high school. I'm in grade 13 at the time. We don't have grade 13 anymore in Ontario. But a few spelling mistakes, and he looked at it and he threw it on the floor. And he's like, Justin, can't do this. You can't have mistakes that I'm going to send to thousands of clients. And I was really upset. And I went home and, emotionally, I was really drained. I cried over it because it was really hard for me to hear. And it made me realize that in high school or university, you can get an 80% or a 90%, and that's good. 90% is an exceptional grade to get. But when you're setting a form to thousands of clients, having spelling mistakes, even if it's 98% accurate, has a negative impression to so many people to say, how could you spell this wrong? And so you know, 90% is good in one context of a university setting, but can be very bad in a work setting because it's the impression and the brand that you display for the institution you work for. And so I was wondering if anyone has an interesting story about any missteps or what you've learned along the way, an obstacle that you had to face early on. Open floor. It doesn't have to be everyone answering this question.
I can start off with it. Early on, um, I would think being an administrator in the financial industry, I'm thinking, okay, I can remember everything. Everybody emails everything. I can remember everything until I came to the audit and not having the proper documentation and thinking I'm going to remember. That was the hardest. I document everything now. But yeah, that was my hardest. For 1 year, I learned very quickly that you need proper documentation. You got to keep all your records. You got to keep all your notes because you will not remember a month from now or even 2 months from now what you're talking about. So that one was good. And I mean, with all these technologies and everything, OneNote where you can drop things in and everything, like it makes it so easy now to document things. But yes, proper documentation, especially in accounting, you need that.
Oh, it's so true. As an internal auditor, I've had so many conversations around proper documentation and missing proper documentation, and those are very hard conversations to have, but very important lessons to learn because you need the backup and support. You need the justification. It's so important in the profession. Anyone else want to speak of this topic? An early career misstep.
Well, I can mention one which doesn't really apply today, really, but I was trying to buy some equities in Japan, and I miscounted the number of zeros in the yen. So I put in an order to buy rather more than intended. I think they call that thick finger syndrome today or something. I was very lucky in that one of my dealers noticed and corrected it for me. But it was a lesson learned to be very precise and know what I'm doing and not just throw it in, oh, there we go, done. But I want to go back to what Justin said because I've worked with Justin now for many years, many, many years. And what he said about spelling obviously resonates with him because I have interviewed so many people with Justin and we've looked at a resume and Justin's gone, "Look, there's a spelling error here. And what's that there? That's really messy and careless." And he immediately has a negative impression of that person to this day. So, I mean, that was when he was young that happened. To this day, that has an important bearing on when he's considering someone to hire. So I think his words are really well learned that when you do learn something like that or keeping your records, it stays with you forever.
Yeah, like early career, it really impacts the rest of your career in terms of what you do or what you say or how you act, and it's such an impressionable point in people's lives.
Oh, wow. I remember sending a resume with the track changes still on. One of the ones that stands out to me, and my first job was, and I worked for Maple Leaf Foods in procurement, and my job was to procure all the hardware and software for our IT department. And there was a procurement network because obviously there were people in the company that were procuring chickens and feed and all these things. And it was part of it was George Shuchek was the VP of procurement, and we had a kind of procurement council. And I was very busy in my work. I was the only person doing it. I was handling tons of purchase orders and invoice and feeling quite burdened and entitled in my youth. And I was in this meeting, and after this council meeting, George had reached out to me saying, Sean, we got this other special project. I'd like to get you involved in it. And my mindset at the time was, I don't want extra work. I'm so busy. I gotta get out of this. And I turned it down, not realizing years later what an opportunity I was given to grow and show my stuff and potentially, advance my career. All I could think so narrow-mindedly is how much more work this was going to be. And so, it's important to balance and say no where possible, but let's look at where those opportunities are and not miss them.
I love it. Each of us have had kind of a different approach or a different perspective, whether it's, track changes or adding extra zeros. And we each have things that are just so memorable for us. And it just shows how our career is just a lifelong journey. And we've said it before, how you make mistakes and you grow and you learn and you develop. I have another question, and this one is for Cristiano and Anna, specifically our graduates. So if you could have gone to any school to do your BBA, why did you ultimately choose to enroll in the BBA at Yorkville University? And how did your BBA experience influence the way you approached your early career? So, Cristiano, I'll start with you on that question.
Yeah. So, as I told you before, I mean, I was already working while I was going, which a lot of students really are. And certainly, when I took part in the mentorship program this year through Yorkville as well, and both of my mentees were working full time and in finance as well. So, it was not only the flexibility, obviously, that Yorkville provided while I was working full time, but I had taken courses and university courses through other online platforms, some of which were, some of the traditional universities, and certainly ones that were online only. When I originally signed up for Yorkville, I kind of read the mission statement at the time, and this is going back now, so almost a decade, I guess, but or not quite, but reading it and thinking to myself, yeah, you know what, this seems a lot more integrated. This is a lot more learning that involves me dealing with real human beings and real learning scenarios. And so, it kind of signed up for my first term and signed up for my courses and thought, hey, listen, this is what I'll do rather than doing night courses through the university, the local university. And honestly, it was almost immediately. Once I started getting into the courses that weren't kind of the pre-work courses and really getting in and diving in with Yorkville, I got hooked. I loved the fact that I was expected to be online, either daily or once every 2 days kind of deal. I was actively researching things. Most importantly, and most importantly to my career as well, and the way it influenced it, my ability to interact not only with the level of proof, the burden of proof that I required to make my arguments while I was doing it, but being able to then take that and rephrase it in a way that people who maybe English wasn't their first language, or maybe people who didn't have the same economic background that I did, could understand it and could digest it. I think that was a huge driver for really some of the changes, a good catalyst for some of the behavioral changes that I made in order to kind of move forward with my career and become more successful. So it actually was quite a large influence on my business as it stands, both then and even today.
Love the response. And I want to highlight one thing, that you are a career mentor, and we have two amazing mentorship programs, one being a life skills for senior students mentoring junior students, and then a career mentorship program where people out in the profession mentor current students. And so for any current students listening to this, you could have Cristiano as your mentor in the future. And that's an incredible opportunity to learn from someone who's been there and done that, and take advantage of these opportunities in the mentorship program, because it just gives you a better perspective of how to prepare or how to study for classes or how to network for jobs. And Anna, I'll let you jump in for the exact same question.
So making a decision to come onto Yorkville, very similar to Cristiano's. I like the platform. I like what Yorkville was offering compared to other. And the same thing, I've tried others, did not succeed in others. Coming into Yorkville, yeah, the flexibility was great, but there was also accountability. You had to do your discussions, you had to sit in those groups, you learn to work with other individuals that perhaps on other online courses you did not have those opportunities. And that was a huge learning, life learning lesson, where in life, unfortunately, you don't get to choose who you work with, right? So learning how to work with others that have different backgrounds, different work habits. How do you adjust yourself and actually accomplish the project at the end? The flexibility, yeah, that was amazing. Loved it. Started off with 2 courses a term, and then ended up my last, I think, 2 or 3 semesters, I was going for load 4 courses and managed to finish the program in a shorter period of time because of that flexibility, because I was able to do that. Met some great people along the way, which I still keep in touch with today, right? So it was a hard decision. I'm not going to lie. It was a hard decision to make that. It is a life-changing decision. You know, I had to have my friends, my family support to do this, because it does take time out of your personal life to do this. But it was the best decision of my entire life. And I wish I would have taken it sooner. That's for sure.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I may be mixing you up with another student here, but I feel like this was a conversation we had a few years ago, like 3, 4 years ago, where there was something you learned in the classroom, and then you had that same realization in a work setting. You're like, wow, I was able to apply this in a work setting. I feel like this was an email conversation between the two of us
Yes.
a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
Am
there
I
was
right in
something
that?
like that. Yeah, there was something like that. I can't remember the exact details, but I do remember that when actually what you learn actually comes into play in real life, and you're like, this is actually useful information. Like, I'm actually putting it into work, what I'm learning into my everyday. And those are key skills, right? Like, you need that.
That's why you're here. That's why you're investing in the program, either as a prospective student looking in or as an existing student. And to have those aha moments, you know, Audrey and I will agree as an instructor in a class, that's what we're here for. That's what we're excited about, because in the discussion questions, we get to see it. We're like, oh, I applied this concept to this in my professional career. And it's so cool to see. It's very rewarding to see. On to the next question, and I know we don't have too much time, but I think this one's a great one for Sean to start off with. What is one skill you recommend students start building now? And what's one piece of advice you would offer to existing BBA students who are currently looking at a career in accounting or finance that maybe you wish you knew in your undergrad? So a
Mhm.
skill that you recommend students start building now. And I know you have 10 options that you could
No,
really
it's hard.
go with, but
I mean, it's
I'll
hard
let you
enough
take
at
the
times.
floor.
Obviously, communication is the most important skill, and there's so many things that come with that, like building likability and the relationships that are critical. You know, people don't buy you or your product. They don't buy your service. They buy you. They buy in the relationship. They buy into that trust, and you need to be able to signal. You know, highly successful people, they communicate in a secret language, a language of cues and signals. And it isn't just in your words, it's in your body language, it's in your tone, it's in your face. That those important communication skills, that shows your confidence, and confidence is persuasive. Every time we're communicating something, we're trying to get somebody to act, whether it's to subscribe or to vote or to accept our proposal or to invest or to hire us. You're always looking for some sort of action with somebody. In order to be persuasive, you've got to understand how to communicate in a way that's engaging, that connects with people, that connects with them on an emotional level. And that just takes a whole lot of intentionality and practice and training. And so this is possible even if you're an introvert. You know, it just starts with understanding, you know, how do I get into the mindset of the person I'm talking to? How do I make them not just communicate something, but how do I make them feel good about what they're hearing? Because if they feel good about what they're hearing, then they're going to be inspired to act. And so this comes with, you know, things like Toastmasters and practicing public speaking presentations. You know, it comes with taking writing courses and how to be persuasive in our writing. It comes with recording yourself speaking and intentionally using your body language. So, you know, this communication skill is by far the most important, because you're going to know the numbers. You're going to have the technical skills. You're going to have all of that great stuff. But unless you can stand up in front of your C-suite executives like Anna Maria does and explain to them, because you speak this language, you're fluent in business, you have to explain to them what the numbers are really saying. And then you need to get their buy-in to your solution to the problem. And you need to lead people through that change. That is where communication skills and emotional intelligence is critical for any leader and any professional.
I feel like you could have talked an hour about this
I
specific
want to.
question. I know you do. So I'm going to turn to the rest of the panel for the same question. What's one skill that you recommend students start building now? And before, it's free for all for anyone to jump in. But before anyone starts, anyone who's listening as an attendee, if you have a question for this panel, because we're wrapping up in about 5 minutes, please type it in the chat and I'll ask the panel. So if anyone has a question, please type it in the chat and I will live ask it to the panel. But continuing on with the existing question for anyone else who would like to answer it, what's one skill you recommend students start building now?
So I mean, I'll go, and it's Sean's point was so important, right? Communication obviously being key in everything you do, regardless. I want to go back to something Anna Maria said earlier, was you don't get to pick the people that you work with in real life, right? Maybe you do when you're in school for for a brief period of time, but that's not the way it works. And so in a manner, this is similar to Sean's kind of skill, but I want to kind of go a little bit further in one direction with it. Is understanding people's motivations goes back to talking to everybody, right?
Mm.
It's not just communication and clear communication. It's also understanding what drives people by understanding who they fundamentally are. And so I would say a skill that I wish that I had developed earlier. I was very shy. I mean, never tell now because I'm never quiet, but I was very shy. I didn't like to talk to strangers. I don't know. Just talk to everybody. Ask them everything, anything that interests you. And it doesn't matter if it's an interest that's minor or major. The more information you can get out of a person, doesn't matter who it is, the more information that you can learn about them and learn about somebody who's different from you, and somebody who maybe has different cultural ideas, or maybe different religious ideas, or maybe different business or economic ideas, whatever the case might be. That to me is a skill that I wish that I had gained earlier, and which has just been immensely important over the years. And I know that anybody who I've ever talked to, whether it's been somebody that I look up to, or somebody who has asked me for help, or to help them through their training, or the different designations that they've had to go through over the years, that has been something that has really driven our ability to communicate with each other, is just understanding where we're at from a fundamental standpoint, and kind of what what could be our motivation, what could be the way that we approach the same question, or the same problem, if that was the situation. And just that sort of full understanding, right? That relationship building as part of the communication process.
I definitely don't see you as shy, and maybe you were in the past, but you have this aura about you now that just like pulls you in, but that's practice, that's lifelong learning, and everything that you mentioned. But that's such a cool transformation that people on the call don't see, but it's a skill that requires a lot of hard work to get to that level. All right, Anna, take us home with the final response as we're nearing the hour point. Tell us about a skill that's so important that students should be learning right now.
So communications are very important, and that's a struggle kind of task that's done every single day in understanding it. But a technical skill that I think is very important is Excel. Everything is Excel when it comes to finance. Having advanced knowledge of Excel and how to do lookups, how to do queries, how to work through those numbers can make your day so much better, make it funner, make it more interesting. You're able to present the data better to people that are not financially knowledgeable. So having those additional skills can really help that communication with others. So yeah, Excel, I think it would be one of on my top list technical skills to start early on.
What's your favorite Excel function? For me, it's pivot tables. Pivot tables are pretty cool, but what's your favorite Excel function?
I love queries. I love when I can run those queries and I press the little button and it does things and it moves things and it creates things, does formulas, takes data from different tabs and different, oh my goodness, that's just a whole new level.
What's funny about this specific conversation is everyone on the call is smiling because they recall something important about Excel, which is that there's endless, like I'm not even an expert and I've been using Excel for 20 years. No, no one is. There's so many equations and formulas and so many different things that you could use in Excel. And it's so important. I see early on a lot of students, and Audrey, I'm sure you see it too, with handwritten responses. And I tell the students, use Excel and use Word, and you can't submit a handwritten response to an employer. It's all like, and this will save you time. If you know Excel, you will be so efficient in your work and present meaningful data to create relevant information to make decisions for the organization. So Excel's a good one. All good responses from everyone. Wow, I wish we could have a part two of this call because there's so much more I'd love to unpack with everyone on the panel. Maybe we'll have a part two at some point. There's a list of questions, and I don't think we even covered half of them. So I want to thank everyone on the call for providing your individual contributions, and you each added a different perspective to make this a really good conversation. I really hope students listen to this. I'm going to post this video for all my students to listen to in my classes. So to everyone on the call, to everyone listening, or the speakers, thank you so much for participating in our webinar. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope this gave you some reflection for your own individual careers. Have a wonderful evening to everyone, or morning or afternoon, depending where you're listening from. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Everyone.
Thank you.